Welcome to People Keeping It Sacred, our new program highlighting people who are keeping it sacred in the world. I'm Rabbi Miller, founder of Keeping It Sacred, and I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Kimberly Dueñas. Kimberly Dueñas is a California native with a global spirit, tracing her roots to rural El Salvador and Europe. A seasoned international Jewish educator, Kimberly is passionate about providing meaningful spaces for people to develop deeper connections to their identities and the world around them. Her enthusiasm for community healing, education, and wellness has inspired her role as the community manager at Jewtina y Co, an anti-oppressive organization on a mission to elevate and celebrate the Latin Jewish community. Kimberly is also a certified yoga instructor and holds a certificate in mindfulness and well-being strategy, which led her to her building Learn, Grow, Rise, a mindful living community. I have been privileged to know Kimberly since she was a youth in the first congregation I served right out of rabbinical school 13 years ago. And I can't wait for her to share more about all the ways she is keeping it sacred. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
It's so amazing. You know, one of my favorite parts about being a rabbi is that I'm blessed with the privilege of accompanying folks along that long trajectory of their lives. And I feel really blessed that you're someone that I've seen go through life and learn, grow, and rise, to borrow from the name of your organization. Can you describe your growth since your days growing up in Southern California and share some of those thoughtful lessons that you've learned about personal growth?
Well, I wouldn't be here today without the support of my community and the leaders like you who helped me bloom, who helped me nourish the soil that I sprouted from. And it really has been an incredible journey. And I feel like the more that I step into myself and I learn to trust myself and follow the path that's set before me, the more empowered I feel to be who I am. And that's really come from a place of just so much nourishment. I feel so grateful to have had my family and community by my side to get me there. And life doesn't come without its trials and tribulations. But for me, the path that I've been on has been about learning how to navigate those ups and downs. And that's been through Jewish community and Jewish ritual. That's been through mindfulness and yoga. So, if I think about this, the transformations that I have been on, those have really been my grounding cords throughout my life, ritual and mindfulness. And it's really what's propelled me to be where I am today. And whenever I reflect back on my path or even plan for my future or dream about the future, it comes down to who I am and what's really at the core of my identity. And I think back to the Jewish values that were instilled in me as a young girl growing up. And in Orange County, it's a beautiful place to grow up and live. But being one of the only Latin Jews in my community, I didn't feel. I wish I had more people like me to congregate with. And I always felt included in the Jewish community and the temple that we were a part of, such a lovely community. But as what I've learned now as an adult is that it's so important to have mirrors, to have people who really reflect pieces of who you are and how you look and the language you speak and the food you eat. So I've really come to value that. And I've done some work around like grieving and mourning those parts of myself that were sad for not having that growing up. So, in that recovering of my identity, it's also led to my awakening. So, my identity is really, really at the heart of who I am. And I go back to my family history. I go back to my upbringing in the Jewish school system at Temple Bethel. And I'm so grateful for everyone who's just really cheered me on and encouraged me to try new things, to be a leader, to be an upstander. It's all of that has led me to who I am now.
It's so beautiful that you can share about how you have grown along the way. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about those awakening experiences that you had. I know that you mentioned that your family is from El Salvador initially, and how you kind of awakened to understand understand what that can mean for you and your Jewish identity.
Absolutely. I find my family history so fascinating, and the more I dive into it, the more I'm just like, I'm taken aback. It's amazing. So my father was born and raised in rural El Salvador, and we come from a family of farmers. They've been there ever since, I guess, for about 500 years, and our ancestors came from Spain. They left Spain and Portugal. They left during the Inquisition. They moved to Central America, eventually found a place to call home. But as they were getting settled, things became difficult for them again. The conquest of, Spanish rule, the conquistadors made it over to Central America as well. So it was, again, like forced, you're either forced to convert or be killed. So my father's family was in survival mode, and like so many became conversos, where they were Christian by day, Jewish by night, having a secret identity. And the story is so remarkable to me because I wouldn't be here if the people, my ancestors, hadn't held on to a spark of Judaism that has somehow remained alive after all these centuries. It's remarkable. And my dad's my dad's family was even raised Catholic. He was baptized and he grew up in the Catholic tradition. He's one of 7 kids, and everyone in the family follows that path. But as a young boy, he had this curiosity in him that wouldn't go away. He wanted to know why his mom was lighting candles every Friday. He couldn't get out of his head reading about the Israelites in the Old Testament. And he felt this like immense passion and longing for justice for them. And so as he started to dig around and ask more questions, he learned more about his Jewish roots, and his parents were very supportive of him following that path. And so when he was a young person in his 20s, he moved to the States. Before he could really even speak English, he joined a synagogue and started to learn Hebrew and went through his path of returning to Judaism. And it's so inspiring for me because it just reminds me where I come from. Whenever I'm facing a challenge in my own life, I remember the incredible resilience that my father has, that all of the ancestors before him have. And for me, it's been a process of embracing my heritage and embracing my story and all of its complexities. And the more that I tap into it, and even now, recently, I'm discovering another layer of my indigenous heritage, where somewhere down the line in history, I have Mayan roots. And like, that's so amazing to me, but it was something that I felt so far from. Growing up, I grew up in a very Ashkenormative world, and I am half Ashkenazi. My mom's family is Eastern European, Ukrainian, Polish, and that's the language that I speak. Like, my grandparents spoke Yiddish to me, and we made knishes and knedlach and all the things. And so that was Judaism growing up for me. But as I started to grow up and notice that I was different from some of the other families, I was just like, wait a minute, there's so many aspects of who I am. And I think I didn't know how to fully hold that when I didn't see other people like me. And there was a turning point after I graduated high school, and you probably remember this. I moved to Israel for a year. And that was the first time I was around a plethora of Jews and experienced so much diversity and so much just, beauty within the mosaic of who we are as Jewish people. So I think, that was one big awakening around my identity, was exploring my roots and going back to my heritage. And I'm continuing to unfold that even, on deeper layers. And then, some of the more personal awakenings that I've experienced in my life have been around, I guess transformation is the right word. And that's really come from a place of self-knowledge. I struggled with anxiety for a long time. And I later learned that was rooted in some different traumas or some different challenges that I had growing up. And it's so many of us, most of us, all of us are walking with wounds, and they manifest in different ways. And for me, it had manifested into anxiety and even depression. And that was like something that I had been grappling with in my college years. And it got to the point after my grandfather had passed away, which I knew you knew him. At that point, things had gotten pretty difficult for me. And so I was led to a mindfulness coach, and then that brought me to yoga. And, it's, what I love about these practices, it's not to say like, oh, yoga saved me, but rather what it is that I learned the power of my breath and how that could be a tool in managing my emotions, getting to know myself, learning to listen to myself, and develop that self-trust. So really for the last 10 years or so, that's been the journey I've been on. I've found so much personal growth from it, and I've become so passionate about it that it's become my profession. And I'm really in the business of teaching people how to hear themselves and how to trust themselves. It's the only medicine we need when we can learn that technology and share that with others. We have so much inner wisdom, and it's just a matter of learning how.
I love that hallmark of your work has been that inner wisdom and empowering people into that. How does that work for you? How do you do that? And how do you awaken people to the benefits of embodied spiritual practice?
Sure. Well, there's, it's unique for everybody. There isn't a one size fits all approach. Every body is different. Everybody's personal histories are different. So I help people through workshops and coaching and things like that. But in the space that I create, it's a container of self-exploration. So we'll do that through breathing practices, through yoga, through writing reflective exercises, different embodied movement to identify certain emotions and kind of put a name to them and express them. And there's a lot of different modalities, but if I had to sum it up into like a couple words, it would be around learning to listen to the body, learning to listen to the heart, and how to still the mind so we can discern what is our thoughts and what are not our thoughts, what are things that might be impressed by society or by family even, and what are the things that are true for us. What is our truth, and what is our spirit saying? What is the inner voice? When I think back to the times that I was struggling the most, those were the times where I was most disconnected from that, that shlemut, that wholeness of who I am. And so in my practice, it's about discovering that wholeness that you already have, but kind of like, clearing off the fog from the glasses and opening up our third eye, our both, our human eyes and our soul eyes to really see with eyes fully open.
I love that. And it seems like the rituals that you lead people through are so multidisciplinary and really not a one size fits all. I think that one of the challenges with prayer services is that, you have the formula of prayer that you need to follow. Right. The benefit of that is that, everybody can pray together, generally right. speaking, once you kind of learn the blessings of that particular community. But it's hard for people to make the jump then to kind of connect what is the rote prayer service with what's going on inside. And so right. I love that you empower people and encourage people to think about what's inside to then bring it out and start connecting with others that way.
Yeah. And we find that there's more that brings us together and connects us together than separates us.
Totally. The human experience is one that is filled with high highs and low lows and everything in between and joys and sorrows and confusion and anger and, all of that. And so being able to allow people the space to really hold that sacred space for people within which they can reflect. It's such a Jewish practice, right? The idea.
It is. Yeah.
The word prayer being, lahit palel, which just means to self-reflect. And so sometimes people just need that moment when they're going through their day or their week,
yes.
From one thing to the next to just say, okay, hold on. How are you? That question, that biblical question, Ayaka, where are you?
Where are you?
Where are you in the midst of all of it?
Nanny, I'm here. And right. And when you think about saying like, I am here, I am present of mind, body, and spirit. And when I think about it and all of the Jewish experience that I've had, Judaism is an embodiment practice. Everything about what we do, we taste, we pray, we drink, we connect, we
Wow.
vow, right? We need to have a minyan to be complete for sacred words to be read. I think our ancestors long ago understood the power of motion and emotion in bringing people together and helping them stick together. There's no way that we would have survived as a people for thousands of years if we didn't have all of these multiple ways of engaging with each other and with our bodies and with ourselves.
And with all of your soul, with all of your heart, with all of your might, right? Like in the Ve'ahavta.
Exactly, the Ve'ahavta.
Yeah, just a complete, total experience.
Yes, and it's so funny because I was in India for 2 years. I was brought there to be a Jewish educator at the JCC of Mumbai and that was with the Joint Distribution Committee. They have this incredible fellowship called the Jewish Service Corps, and it still is a highlight of my life. That was such an amazing experience. And it was a 1-year fellowship that turned into 2 years because I just loved India and it was a good match. The community and I are just, we have such a loving connection. But I just found it so interesting how easy it was for me to just be in the Indian Jewish community and then just find myself landing so comfortably in the culture of yoga and the study of yoga because it's so Jewish, and vice versa. And Judaism has so much of yoga in it. It's a natural connection for me. And so when I moved back to the States, it was really the first time I was able to see everything on the same plane, but I can't imagine not having one without the other. And, I get compliments to all the teachers who have taught me how to use my whole body as I pursue justice, as I pray, as I connect with my community. And then when I think about my yogic teachers, it wasn't just about asana, the postures, so sometimes in Western culture, we find it is about movement and stretching, but it's so much deeper than that. It is about your connection to the divine and to yourself and to how you can be of service. So for me, yoga and Judaism is one and the same. And I love it so much.
I just think about the Elohai Neshama, right? The prayer about our breath and just the words, the Hebrew words themselves cause you to breathe. Elohai Neshama, right? It's very open vowel sounds, right? We're taught to shema, to listen,
right.
And to be, and I love, for example, the ritual music of people like Shefa Gold, where you have like chanting of the same verse over and over again. So you get deeper and deeper.
Like mantra. I do that in Indian culture, yogic culture as well. It's amazing.
Exactly. And I think that it's great because they're access points for people to get into as well. It's not like, throwing people a paragraph of Hebrew that is going to feel really alienating, but it's really just about, it's not even about what you mentally know. Yeah. It's about giving your spirit the room to breathe. Wow. And how can we do that?
Beautifully said. And it's not a coincidence that neshama, the word for soul, and nishmat, of the breath, the breathing and the breath of life, it's the same. It's all in the same.
Yeah, it's all about the breathing and continuing breathing through life.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about Jewtina and how you connected with the community and your role there?
Yes, so Jewtina y Co is it's a really special organization that we're building together. My partner, and she's the director and the founder of Jewtina. Her name is Ana Lucia Lopez Reveredo, and she is just a brilliant human being and a dear friend of mine. So her background is in social work and ethnography, and she has her PhD. Definitely look her up because she's so incredible. But
yeah. Definitely everyone should look her up. I know her too through Clubhouse, and she's amazing, and I've really enjoyed hearing what she has to say. And I you know, and on Jewtina, the website, everyone should check it out because Ana Lucia has written so much, so many beautiful reflections about what it means to be Jewish and Latina, and there's so much on the website as well, but definitely. So it's so great that how did you connect with her in the first place?
Yeah, so she and I met a few years ago. She's also involved with JDC, and there was a reunion event for young professionals, so for anyone who'd been involved in their projects or their programs. And when we met, it was like fireworks, like, oh my gosh, my long lost sister. And at the time, she had been building the project that is now Jewtina, where she was collecting stories from Latin Jews around the world. And there was nothing like this. And she saw that there was a need for our voices to be elevated, our stories to be told. So often, the Latin Jewish community is not understood or misunderstood. The Latin Jewish community isn't a monolith. There is no one way to be a Latin Jew. We have Jews of color, we have adoptees, we have Latin Jews, we have Sephardic, Ashkenazi, I mean, European descent, we have indigenous, we have everyone in between. So that was really what she was trying to create, was this platform for the stories to be told. And her dream was for it to grow into community. And when we met, you know, the stars aligned, and she and I went on this journey of building it together. And she asked me if I wanted to go on this ride with her. And I said, yes, this is exactly what I want to be doing with my time and my energy. And I was also on my personal quest, as I mentioned before, to understand my own Latin Jewish journey and my own Latin Jewish roots, because I had been disconnected. I had been to El Salvador many times, and I had been involved with the Jewish community, but I hadn't had enough experiences of everything together. And so it's been such a healing process for me to learn more about my community and find my own voice. And that's really what we're hoping to create, is this expanding, constantly expanding, co-created space of people sharing their stories, of people engaging together, both in growing community and education, but also a lot of healing. There's a lot of healing work that needs to be done within the community, where there have been oversights within the Latin community and in the Jewish community. And so there's a lot that we're creating space for. So some of the things that we're doing now, just to name a few, well, we have resources available around holidays. So those are Jewish educational pieces that just offer activities or learning from a Latin Jewish lens, or from a lens of racial equity, which we're really passionate about and really put at the forefront of all of our work.
It's part of your core vision, I saw. Yeah.
Yes, anti-oppressive. Yes.
Yes.
And I mean, we really believe that no one is free unless we're all free, and we're all working towards that collective liberation. So it's really at the heart of who we are. And that's at the foundation of our leadership cohort that we're leading, that we're holding right now. This is going to become an annual cohort, we hope. But right now we have an advisory group of Latin Jewish leaders that are examining not just their own identity, but doing really important work around anti-racism and anti-oppression within our own narratives, where we may have been complicit, and how we can put an end to any injustices in ourselves, in our communities, and carry that forward. So that's really exciting, and we have a lot to come. We're currently working on building more partnerships with other organizations of Jews of color, trying to really work to expand, not just building the community, but really creating sustainable change and systemic change, fighting for systemic change within the Jewish community and outside of it.
And, the keeping it sacred, one of our core pieces is also justice. And I think that, to be a whole person in the world, you can't only reflect on what is within, but as a human being in the world, we're part of structures and part of society, and whether or not we particularly built it, we're still part of the system. And the system is educating us in a certain way and putting blinders on us in a certain way, like I don't, and so I think that if we have these blinders on, it's really incumbent upon us to analyze it and to take those off and to really see what's around and what's around us, and make change where we can. So that sense of responsibility is incredible.
Yeah. And it starts with a sense of awareness. And then after the awareness is the willingness to dive in. And it's not, listen, this work isn't for the faint of heart, but it is the most important and crucial life-saving work that anyone can do.
Totally. And I think about it like, the Shema, we're commanded to listen. Yeah. And, when we put on the Talit, right, that's the commandments, right? We have 613 knots in the Talit. Right. And that's like, we put it on our shoulders, we're taking on that responsibility of lifting up all of God's creations and lifting up in a way that, allows everybody to shine. So it's putting that onto our shoulders is so critical.
And at the same time, celebrate their resiliency that has created who I am. And I think about the future and all the future generations of Latin Jews, of Jews of color, of anyone who is not part of that mainstream, normative, very elevated, highlighted group within our community and outside of it. And I think about what I wish I would have had as a young person, and if those, if that education and in that modeling, and to see, like, if I would have seen a Latin Jewish leader growing up, that would have meant the world to me. And so that's what we're trying to create. And, that goes with our Black Jewish family and our Asian Jewish family and our adoptee or Jews of choice family, right? And just really having a collective liberated Jewish community. What would that look like?
If the leadership of the Jewish community would reflect the diversity of the Jewish community, what a world we would be in.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you so much for this. Can you tell people where they can find you and some of the projects that you'd like for them to know about?
Yes. So where you can find me and the work that I do and the services that I offer, I work with individuals and groups doing mindfulness, yoga, and transformation work. I'm on learngrowrise.com. That's my website. And then if you are an Instagram person, it's Kimberly Ariella. And we can put that in the notes, I'm sure, so you could see the spelling. But Ariella, by the way, is my middle name. It means lioness in Hebrew, and I love it. So at Kimberly Ariella is my Instagram. And so Jewtina, please follow our work. Please check us out. And if you have friends, anyone that you know that identifies as a Latin Jew, send them our way, because we would love to share their story and learn about them and connect with them. You can find us on jewtina.org. And I'm the community manager. And so I'm so devoted and invested in creating community and collaboration. So if you're an organization or a person who wants to do something together, reach out to me, community@jewtina.org. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook and all those things, Jewtina y Co. Please find us, and thank you so much for tuning in and your support, and just keeping it sacred.
You have the newsletter too, and there's so much good content that you're generating, both at Learn, Grow, Rise and also through Jewtina y Co. So definitely everybody should check those out. I'm so glad to share those and lift those up as well. It's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. If you have someone that you'd like to recommend we host on the show, please contact us at keepingitsacred.com. There you can also sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with all that we're programming, opportunities to gather together, and more. Thank you, everyone, for keeping it sacred. Be well.